Today it's all about farm marketing and business planning. Stay tuned for that coming up. Welcome to Grass-Fed Life. I'm your host, Diego, D-I-E-G-O. Today's episode is brought to you by the Grass-Fed Life Insiders. To give you a quick little summary of what that is, for $5 a month or $49 a year, you can pledge to support the creation of content just like this. It's not a donation, it's a value exchange because we're going to take your pledge and use it to produce content like you're going to hear today. And we're going to use that pledge to both make content available to insiders and also free within the public domain. So if you've enjoyed this show, if you want to support the show, and you want to get a lot more than this show can provide, then consider becoming a Grass-Fed Life Insider. Learn more at grassfedlife.co/insider. Today's episode is all about farm marketing and business planning. What you're going to hear today is the audio from a presentation that Darby did at PV3 about 3 years ago. This is a long presentation. This is a 3.5 hour plus presentation. And you're going to hear the audio version of that, or at least a portion of the audio version of that today. If you want to be able to see the video, along with all the slides that go with this presentation, you're going to have to be an insider to do that. Now, given what Darby covers in this presentation, it's really more than a presentation. This is a crash course on marketing. And given the length at over 3.5 hours long and what he covers in here, I think this presentation alone could justify you becoming an insider. Because one of the core legs of every business is marketing. And a lot of people struggle with marketing. Well, here's one presentation, one tool to help you market your business, your farm, and your products better. Let's jump right into it. It's Farm Marketing with Darby Simpson.
You know, a few things about myself and my farm. I was born and raised in central Indiana. Our farm is just south of Indianapolis, about 45 minutes. Lifelong Hoosier. Married, got a couple of kids, and you know, our farm's kind of interesting. It's kind of rare, I think. Just, you know, a short history is my family got there in 1828. The land was, you know, initially given to my great-great-grandfather with land patents signed by the sitting president in the White House. It's kind of cool. I've been there almost 200 years. I remember first showing a little inkling of interest in farming when I was like 5 years old. And my grandfather at the time, this is like 1980, he squashed that immediately. And I can remember as clear as yesterday him telling me, you cannot make a living in farming. You need to go do something else. So that's what I did. I went and did something else. But I still always had that desire in the back of my mind to farm. And so, you know, fast forward to like probably about the year 2000, I was HVAC and plumbing engineer, and so I'm working with a coworker one day as an electrical engineer. His name was Larry Stuffle, and I remember him asking me about our farm and how much land we had. And we're not utilizing all this, but our family property, there's almost 300 acres there. And I remember Larry saying, gosh, you know, it's a real shame that a guy can't go make a full-time living with 300 acres anymore. And I'm like, yeah, no, you can't do it. I mean, I talk to these row crop guys, and you got to have like, you know, a couple thousand acres, or basically you're just kind of playing around because the margins are so low. But that conversation really stuck in my mind, and I, you know, a year or two later, I was kind of like, why can't a guy go make a living with 300 acres? And so I started doing some research. Actually, initially, you guys are going to laugh probably, but the first guy I found that was like really interesting to me is a guy named Elliot Coleman, who's up in Maine. It's a market gardener. If any of you guys are familiar with JM, who's speaking here, that's somebody he's, I think, learned a lot from, kind of a similar style. And so I thought, yeah, I'm going to go grow vegetables, you know. And Elliot Coleman farms from like Labor Day weekend through Memorial Day in Maine. Yeah, and he takes off in like 4 months in the summer and enjoys life. But he's like half scientist, half farmer. Pretty interesting guy. So I thought maybe I'll do that as like a second career sort of thing, empty nester when the kids are gone. And long story made short, for me personally, is a very like prayerful leading to do animals. So 2007, I started reading Joel Salatin. Basically, that was my jumping on point. And we started with 50 broilers on pasture, invested about $500-600. And, you know, that was all we had to spend. That was all the money I could afford to lose. Single income, 2 little kids, you know, wife stays home. But it's, you know, it's kind of worked out. It's been really darn hard. There's quick little side notes, not my notes. Don't romanticize farming. It's hard. It's really hard. I mean, there is a romantic allure to it. It's cool. Enjoy it, but don't romanticize it. It will punch you in the face and then, you know, kick you when you're about halfway back up. So, anyway, I really come at this from more of a Salatin model, and I kind of see myself migrating more towards the permaculture side of things. Just in the interest of full disclosure, I'm not a permaculture guy. I've never taken a PDC. My good friend Jack Spirko continually tells me that I'm more of a permaculturist than I realize, and I just don't know it yet. So I'll take his word for it. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there, and it was a real honor for me to get asked to come out here and share with you guys what we're doing. So real quick about our operation. We raise about 2,500 pastured meat broilers a year. We're doing about 65 to 75 hogs. We're finishing about 12 to 15 head of cattle per year. My cattle herd is, you know, about 24 to 30 head. Any of you guys that sat in Greg's class yesterday, you know, and he's talking about 300 cows, and I'm just kind of like, wow. You know, that's pretty amazing to think about. But, you know, we started with like 4 cows, and we're just working our way up. We also do 125 Thanksgiving turkeys. Just for Thanksgiving, one time a year. A lot of reasons for that are just pure logistics. So I mentioned we've got about 290 acres to work with. Yes, it's family land. Yes, I didn't have to pay for it, but just the way things are structured, I do have to lease it back from my family, the way things are structured right now. So I don't want you to think that it's like just all free and, you know, magical unicorns and fairy dust and it just all works. That's, you know, built into the cost of our operation. We're using about 40 acres total for production, so it's pretty high density as far as animals go. We're grossing well over $4,000 an acre on that 40 acres, versus my row crop neighbors who are grossing like less than $400 an acre. I've been doing this full time for 6 years, and they still tell me all the time that it can't be done and I can't do what I'm doing. And kind of like Greg said yesterday, you don't argue with the neighbors, you just makes them mad, and you're just kind of like, yep, you're right. I can't do it. You can't raise pigs in the woods. That's how God wired them to work, but I can't do it. So, yeah, you just shake your head in agreement. So, you know, this really does work. You've got to be smart. And what you're going to get today is I'm very much a nuts and bolts kind of guy. It's just my engineering background, real technical function over form. So you might be wondering, like, why would a guy that's producing all this stuff, when asked to come to this conference, choose to talk about business planning and marketing? And the reason for that is real simple. I do a little bit of consulting, one-on-one consulting, and like a lot of people, admittedly, there are guys, like, look, if you want to go learn how to graze cows, there's stuff I can teach you. But I tell people this all the time. I'm like kind of like Padawan learner, and Master Yoda is sitting back here. So like, go learn from Master Yoda. All right. There's not a whole lot of guys though that are like teaching the business side of this, and where I see a lot of people fail is in the marketing and the business. They get so laser focused on the production side. I've literally had people call me like, so we've got like 20 pigs that are going to be done in a month. What do we do? It's like, oh my gosh. They haven't thought about it at all. Hence the quote up here, you know. I'm not like an in the tank guy for Dave Ramsey. I just found this quote and I think it's, you know, it just really sums up what I experience when I talk with a lot of people. They get really fired up, and there's a lot of good information on how to do like anything from microgreens to cattle and anything in between, but they don't stop and think like, once I produce all this stuff, how am I going to sell it? Where am I going to sell it? How do I find customers? What are my options? So, you know, that's kind of what I want to go through today. Again, in full disclosure, I do not have any training in marketing or business or accounting or anything. This is just stuff I've had to learn and figure out as we've gone, and we've had things blow up in our face. Fortunately, none of those things have sunk us financially. You know, there's some planning in that, and there's a bit of luck in that as well, just dodging some bullets. So anyway, that's just kind of the short version of who I am, where I come from, and kind of where we're at today. So we're just going to kind of jump in here and get started. Want to encourage you guys, like if you've got questions, stop and ask, because if that question's on your mind, then chances are that there's 5 or 6 other people in here that are thinking the exact same thing. So yeah, if you've got like, you know, a quick question about what we're going through. Now, if you've got like a question and here are the 38 specific issues I'm dealing with, trying to sort this out, let's hold those till the end. I'll stay in here past 12 o'clock to get all those answered. So we'll be done when you guys are done. This is your time. I work for you. So keep that in mind and ask questions as we go. Okay? So this is marketing reality as we see it. And like I said, you know, a huge area we see a failure in when talking with new farmers is just that lack of experience in marketing and the failure to build a customer list. And you've got to build a big enough list on economies of scale to like make this thing work, to make it jive. And you know, if you don't, your moral fortitude and your enthusiasm is only going to get you so far, and then like you're going to burn yourself out. I mean, if it doesn't pay to do it, you're not going to do it very long. So keeping in mind that, you know, we see so many people that just, like I said, get so laser focused on the production side. Now, there's no one way to build a successful marketing campaign for your business. Like, what you do is going to be so determined by your personality, your geographic location, your social network, all these things, okay? So if you're smart, what you're going to do is look at like what I'm doing, what a guy like Greg is doing, what a guy like Curtis Stone is doing, and realize that, yes, those are 3 totally different businesses, but like what can I apply from their marketing, their business structure to what I'm doing? So look at all these different people that are successful and garner what you can from those operations and apply it to what you're doing. You really have got to take into account your personal style and your geographic location. That is so huge. It's totally different for me. I'm 45 minutes from downtown Indianapolis. I'm 35 minutes from Indiana University, which in Bloomington, Indiana, has one of the largest farmers markets in the United States, and arguably one of the best. Definitely like top 5 in the Midwest. It's huge. When that thing gets rolling, there's over 100 vendors there. 7,000 to 12,000 people walk through that thing in 5 hours. If you live out in the middle of Wyoming and it's 6 hours to a city that has 200,000 people, your marketing strategy is going to look totally different than mine. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. By and large, everything that follows, like this is what we do every day. There's not theory in this. There's a couple of things in here that I've added and I put an asterisk next to it because it's stuff that I'm kind of thinking about. Your marketing strategy is like ever evolving and changing. As an engineer, so like I get things going and I'm like, okay, so I got that going and now it's just kind of a little bit of keeping it going. It's mostly inertia. I shouldn't have to mess with it anymore. It's maintenance. And then that just like all falls apart. And that's been a really hard thing for my personality, to have to adjust and deal with. But it's ever evolving. You got to keep that in mind. It's going to change. It's really going to change the first few years that you're in business, because a lot of this it's throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks, guys. You're going to try some stuff. It's going to fail. If you're not failing, then you're probably not trying hard enough, honestly. So you're going to see this term a lot, getting beyond organic, okay? And there's a really good reason why this is like right at the beginning of the presentation. So like to understand why, our farming and marketing style works, like you have to understand like what it's the way we farm is like it's a moral decision. So it's something I'm really, really passionate about. And this whole approach of like doing things better than organic, because like, so many customers think organic's the pinnacle, and you have to explain to them that it's not. It's been co-opted like everything else gets co-opted. But you've really got to understand like, how we do things, why we do things that way, to understand why our marketing works so well. They are intimately intertwined, our marketing and our farming style. Communicating our high standards to people we meet, to customers, it is absolutely paramount to our success. We're direct selling everything. We don't raise a whole lot of stuff. I gave you those numbers for a reason. That's not a whole lot of product. We've got to capture every dollar possible. We don't sell through, a lot of like health food stores or restaurants or, something like Organic Valley, like a big cooperative, because the margins are so much lower. I'm a one-man show. I'm pretty anti-employee. That's being generous. I'm very anti-employee. Totally open to like element partnerships, but I don't want any employees. We got some people that help us out here and there, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit later when we need some physical help with some labor. But I'm a one man show by and large, so like that's what I can reasonably handle and not kill myself too much and still have a good quality of life and spend time with my kids and my wife. You got to keep everything in balance. So when we communicate this to our customers, like we totally take advantage of that, okay? And we get every bit of mileage we can out of those high standards. We take advantage of that for all that it's worth. I think that using this beyond organic approach is a legitimate way to do things. If you go and look at what certified organic means in whatever it is that you all are producing, and then you look at like how you're doing it, chances are you are far and away exceeding what those standards represent. My example to customers a lot of time is a cow. An organic beef only has to spend 90 days of its life on pasture. It can then be put into a feeding operation. It does have to get organic corn. You can't use antibiotics, but like when you ask a customer, what do you envision in your mind's eye when I say organic beef? They envision this cow out frolicking in the pasture and fresh air with clean water, being a cow, doing what cows were wired up to do. That doesn't mean that organic beef isn't done that way, but most of it's not, and you just have to make them aware that like you're assuming the standard is up here because that's what's in your mind's eye. But like this is what the standard represents. This is how we do things. And then you use that to your advantage to justify your prices, to get them to understand that it's reasonable for your labor. So we spend a lot of time educating consumers. And why is there such a big emphasis on educating consumers? If you don't take the time to educate them, do not expect them in return to give you a premium price for your product. Educating consumers at the farmer's market, particularly if you're doing meats, is a huge, huge investment of time. It's just something I've learned to live with. It's a bit frustrating to watch a new customer walk up to the chemical-free veggie guy that's set up next to me, and he's got this big display of red tomatoes and green cucumbers and bright red radishes and beets, and they walk up and are like, "Hey, are you chemical-free?" "Yeah, okay. Well, I'll take 2 of those and 1 of this and 3 of these and a bag of that." And it's like 38 seconds that interaction's done, and they spend $15 and walk off. It's not uncommon for me to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes answering questions about how we do things with animals, educating that new customer. But it's an investment of time we have to make. And oftentimes, I'd say half the time, like, they don't buy anything. And the other half the time, they might like spend $7, $8 because they just want to put their big toe in the water. They want to trust you. It's just so different with animals. I'm sure that that's true with other things as well, but like I just don't see it if you're doing veggies or microgreens or any of those things. Like I think it's a lot easier. But with meat, if you're doing meat, plan on a huge investment of time explaining like how you do things, what you don't do. What was the chicken's name? All kinds of stuff. Don't make assumptions that people know what pasture-based or regenerative or permaculture is. They don't. They really don't. What they've got in their head is organic. Okay? Most customers are just not that educated. Occasionally, I'll meet someone that is really educated, and it's a breath of fresh air. Like, they ask you a few questions, and you start explaining things, and they're just like, yes, I've been looking for you. I've been looking for a farm that does this. I watched this documentary. I read this book. And you're just like, wow. That, for me, that like really fills my emotional gas tank. Man, that's, oh my gosh, maybe like 1 out of 40, 1 out of 50 people, at least with animals, have that level. They've taken that much time to study things, to educate themselves. So you have to do a lot of education. What really makes this a key issue, what we've got to understand is that for most people, again, that organic in their mind, like that's the pinnacle of achievement. And some things, organic standards are pretty good, and a lot of things, organic's pretty crappy, honestly. Go back 20, 25 years, pretty good standards, but it's really been watered down since then. Another thing you've got to do is like effectively communicate, at least, in our situation, the entire reason we're doing this to begin with is for like the health and nutritive value of that food. And again, like explaining the difference between how much nutrition is in a 100% grass-fed side of beef versus organic beef that might have spent 6 months or more chomping down on corn that was raised in a monoculture on dead soil. Like, they don't understand that nutrition comes from soil, guys. They don't understand microbes and building soil and carbon. They don't know. You've got to explain these kinds of things. You also need to explain that, this style of agriculture is going to repair our soils. Now, you don't have to give them a sermon, okay, and convert them into a permaculturist in 5 minutes at the farmer's market. That's not the goal. But just to kind of give them the quick overview of like, this is why food is so devoid of nutrition. And this style of farming, like this is going to build the soil. And with that, the soil is going to take care of us. Being able to communicate these ideals clearly and effectively is really super important. Like you've got to kind of get a pitch down. You've got to get a story down, a quick way to really streamline, give them the highlights, the bullet points of why all these things are important. When you're a small scale enterprise and you're direct selling everything, like it's just so important to do that so that you can, like, there's no middleman. Like you're getting every bit of profit you can. Guys, it is hard to make a full-time living doing this kind of stuff. It's possible, but you've got to capture as many dollars as you can. If you don't, then you've got to scale way up. If I just want to go sell through some channel that's going to do all my marketing for me, I mean, these numbers, I'd probably at least have to triple them. And I can't do that. Like I can't do that much labor. So now I have to hire somebody. Well, now I got to scale up again just to justify hiring that person to give them a decent wage. And it's hard work, you know. I mean, I've had people help me, like good friends that are hard workers that don't take anything for granted. And one friend of mine in particular, he was between jobs, so he was helping me out for a few weeks, you know, like building some fence and just doing the daily stuff and working on some projects. He is in good shape. And he's like, man, I just don't know how you do this every day. You know, he was worn out. I mean, it's hard. So you really got to make that labor count, is my point. You know, so after explaining all this, if, you know, someone still chooses to not support you, that's fine. That just means that, like, they're not willing to compensate you for your time. They're not willing to pay you for your labor. I'm okay with that. I'm pretty libertarian, pretty laid back. But when I boil it down for a lot of Americans, that's pretty offensive to them. Because basically what I'm saying is, like, you just don't want to pay me for my time. You'll pay this guy for his time, and this lady for her time, and this person for that time, but you don't want to pay a farmer. That's cool. I just want you to understand, like, that's really what you're saying. You don't value my labor. As a small-scale producer, you know, we don't have huge marketing budgets to get our message out. So what this means in the end is just like countless hours of communication. Countless hours. It's never ending. There are reasons for that. We'll get into it in a little bit.
There you have it, Darby Simpson on farm marketing. If you want to hear the rest of this presentation in audio form, or if you want to see this whole presentation in video form, including the slides, then you're going to have to do so by becoming a Grass-Fed Life Insider. The Grass-Fed Life Insider gives you access to exclusive premium content just like this. Every week of the year, we'll be releasing a brand new piece of content into the Grass-Fed Life Insider. That means the content library that you're going to have access to as an insider is ever growing and ever expanding. So if you enjoyed this show, if you've enjoyed past shows, and you want to contribute to the future production of content just like this, while getting valuable resources in return, then consider becoming a Grass-Fed Life Insider at grassfedlife.co. That's all for this one. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.